I never expected him, Damien Cross, the billionaire with a reputation colder than his steel gray eyes. The moment I walked into that meeting, his gaze locked onto me like a predator sizing up prey. I was just the architect hired to design his luxury resort, but the way he looked at me made it feel like so much more. Before he left, he leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "I won't touch you," he murmured, "not unless you beg me to." I scoffed. But my traitorous heart raced. Weeks passed in a haze of stolen glances and heated arguments. He challenged every design choice I made, his voice dripping with arrogance, and something darker, something that made my skin prickle. One stormy night, we were the last ones in the office. The electricity flickered, plunging us into near darkness. His fingers brushed mine as he handed me a file, and a jolt of heat shot through me. "You're testing me," he growled. I held his gaze, refusing to back down. The gala was a masquerade of temptation. I wore emerald silk that slithered against my skin with every step, and I knew Damien would notice. The moment I entered, his gaze burned through the crowd, locking onto me like a brand. He didn't ask, just took my hand and pulled me onto the dance floor. His palm pressed hot against my lower back, fingers splaying possessively. The music pulsed, and our bodies moved in sync, closer than necessary. His breath ghosted over my lips. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, voice rough. I didn't. His mouth hovered, a breath away, then he wrenched back, leaving me trembling. "Not yet," he said, and walked away. The ache he left behind was torture. I couldn't take it anymore, the lingering glances, the way his knuckles whitened every time I leaned too close, the unbearable tension that crackled between us like a live wire. I stormed into his office without knocking, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Damien looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, those storm gray eyes, darkened as they raked over me. "Why won't you just break your damn vow?" I demanded, my voice trembling with frustration. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of calm, but I saw the way his fingers tightened around his pen. "You think this is easy for me?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "You have no idea what you do to me." I stepped closer, my pulse roaring in my ears. "Then show me." His restraint snapped. In one fluid motion, he was out of his chair, crowding me against the wall. His body pressed into mine, hard and unyielding, his breath hot against my lips. "You don't understand," he growled. "If I touch you, it won't be gentle. It won't be sweet. It'll be consuming, relentless, everything, and once I start, I won't stop. I should have been afraid. Instead, heat pooled low in my stomach. "I'm not asking you to stop." For a heartbeat, he wavered, then he cursed under his breath and stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "Not like this," he muttered. "Not here." Before I could respond, he turned and walked out, leaving me breathless and aching. The sky split open as I walked home, rain pouring down in sheets. My silk robe clung to my skin, the fabric growing heavier with every step. I cursed under my breath, tugging it tighter, but the wind had other ideas. A sharp gust tore it open, exposing the curve of my neck, the dip of my collarbone. Headlights cut through the downpour. A sleek black car rolled to a stop beside me, the window sliding down to reveal Damien's sharp profile. His gaze dragged over me, slow and deliberate, lingering on every inch of exposed skin. "Get in," he commanded, his voice rough. I hesitated, rain dripping from my lashes. "Why?" His jaw tightened. "Because if you don't, I'll carry you." The promise in his words sent a shiver down my spine. This time, I didn't argue. I slid into the car, the leather seat cool against my soaked skin. The moment the door closed, the air between us thickened, charged with something electric. Damien didn't move, didn't speak. Just watched me with those predator's eyes, his fingers flexing on the steering wheel. Then, without warning, he reached out, his thumb brushing a raindrop from my lower lip. "You're killing me," he murmured. And just like that, I knew, neither of us would walk away untouched tonight. The moment his thumb brushed my lip, something inside me shattered. I grabbed his wrist, pressing his palm against my racing heart. "Stop fighting this," I whispered. Damien's control snapped. With a growl, he dragged me across the console onto his lap, his mouth crashing into mine. The kiss was wildfire, consuming, desperate, his teeth scraping my bottom lip as his hands mapped every curve through the soaked silk. Rain pounded the roof like the hammering of my pulse as his fingers tangled in my hair, tilting my head back to deepen the kiss. "You taste like rain and sin," he murmured against my mouth before claiming it again. His other hand slid beneath my robe, scorching my bare thigh. I gasped into his mouth, arching against him. The car filled with the sounds of our ragged breathing and the storm outside. Morning light revealed the scattered evidence of our passion, my ruined robe draped over the dashboard, Damien's shirt buttons scattered across the floor. I woke pressed against his bare chest, his arm possessively around my waist. "You're still here," he said hoarsely, fingers tracing my spine. "Did you think I'd run?" His jaw tightened. "Everyone else does." I turned to face him, cupping his stubbled cheek. "I'm not everyone." For a heartbeat, his icy mask slipped, revealing raw vulnerability. Then he pulled away, dressing with military precision. "This was a mistake." The word stung. "Your body disagrees." He froze by the door, shoulders tense. "Bodies lie." "I won't." His voice broke. "I can't do this again." The slam of the door echoed like a gunshot in my chest. The resort blueprints blurred before my tear-filled eyes when my assistant slipped a newspaper across my desk. The headline screamed, "Cross Empire Heir's Scandalous Past Fiancé's Betrayal Nearly Destroyed Family Fortune." My breath caught at the grainy photo of a younger Damien, his arm around a stunning brunette. That evening, I found him brooding on the private beach, whiskey in hand. "You knew I'd see it eventually," I said softly. His knuckles whitened around the glass. "She sold company secrets to my rival. The night before our wedding." The raw pain in his voice cracked something in me. I knelt before him, taking his face in my hands. "Look at me. I'm not her." Rain began to fall as I pressed my forehead to his. "This isn't just physical for me either." His shuddering breath warmed my lips. "That's what terrifies me most." The resort's grand opening loomed, yet Damien avoided me for days. When I finally cornered him in the penthouse elevator, his cold mask was back in place. "We're done," he stated, staring straight ahead. I slammed the emergency stop button. "Liar." My fingers traced his clenched jaw. "You're pushing me away because you're scared to need someone." His chest rose sharply. "You deserve better than a broken man." "Let me decide that." I stepped closer, our breaths mingling. "One last chance, Damien. Touch me like you mean it, or I walk away forever." The elevator hummed with tension as his gaze dropped to my lips. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Then suddenly, his hands cradled my face, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized I'd shed. "God help us both," he whispered before crushing his mouth to mine. The elevator doors slid open directly into Damien's penthouse, our tangled bodies spilling out in a feverish rush. His lips never left mine as he backed me toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the stormlit city. The glass chilled my bare shoulders where he'd torn my blouse, his hands worshipping every newly exposed inch of skin. "Look at me," he demanded, voice raw. When I opened my eyes, the vulnerability in his gaze stole my breath. Rain streaked the window behind us like tears as he whispered, "I've been drowning since the moment I saw you." His confession shattered me. I framed his face with trembling hands. "Then let me be your heir." What followed wasn't the frantic coupling I expected, but something infinitely more profound. Each touch spoke of devotion, every kiss a silent vow. When our bodies finally joined, it felt like coming home. The storm outside reached its crescendo as we clung to each other, whispering promises between gasps and sighs. Later, wrapped in sheets and his arms, I traced the scar over his heart. "This changes everything," I murmured. Damien caught my fingers, bringing them to his lips. It changes nothing. At my panicked look, he smiled, that rare, true smile I'd only glimpsed in fragments. Because you've always owned me, Lena. Since the first rainstorm. 1 year later, we stood beneath that same penthouse window, watching storm clouds gather over our completed resort. My engagement ring glittered as Damien pressed against me from behind, his lips finding that spot below my ear that still made me shiver. "The weatherman says thunder," he murmured. I turned in his arms, grinning. "Better keep your hands to yourself, Mr. Cross." His laughter warmed my skin as the first drops hit the glass. "Not a chance, Mrs. Cross-to-be." And as the rain fell in sheets around us, so did every last barrier between our hearts. The man who swore never to touch me now couldn't keep his hands off me. And I wouldn't have it any other way.